At Salon, so we had a few questions asked about YouTube generation, so I thought I'm gonna just throw the question to Alan and let's hear what you have to say. Specifically, it's about YouTube generation. We have, as you know, obviously, well, some of the listeners may not know, but we have Lily Jr., who is only 17. She's also your daughter, and she's also training as a hairdresser. She gets a lot of her kind of education from YouTube. Nobody's asking her go and train on YouTube, but she likes to train by YouTube. And then we have a lot of industry people not complaining but raising concerns about there are young generation and they seem to be, you know, getting training really fast. And we think that's because of YouTube generation. Now, what's your opinion? How that impacts the industry standards, shall I say?
It always surprises me when people say that, to be truthful, because what we have to remember is we're not really a out of a box system industry. We are created by nature. I know this has gone back a long time, but when I used to have my salons, and even when I started hairdressing, I wanted to be cutting hair long before I was a stylist, long before. So to put young kids through certain systems very slowly, for me, is wrong. It has its good side, but there's two things going to happen. One, they're going to be great at certain things. They're not going to be great at other things. So sometimes you need that apprenticeship, which isn't necessarily a trainee apprenticeship, but you still need that system, and you need older mentors in the salon who will take these kids through. But when I first started hairdressing, I always refer to Anthony Muscala, because remember this was in the 80s, so a long time ago. Anthony Muscala was a young kid, 17, who was doing some really cool stuff. I'd already started cutting hair when I was around 14. So when I used to go to the hairdressers during the punk rock phase, I would always sit and watch how the hairdressers were cutting hair, and I would just go home and copy. And the same at home. My mum wasn't a hairdresser, but she used to cut people's hair in the kitchen. I would watch what she was doing and copy it on my friends. So by the time I started hairdressing in a salon after 18 months at college, I didn't even do the 2 years because I completed everything. I left actually and got a job. After the 18 months, I was ready to cut hair. Now the problem was this: when I got to the salon, I thought I was going to be brilliant. But when I got to the salon, in relation to, say, Karen, who was my senior, I was terrible. Because although I had cut hair younger and knew how to pick up in section and do all this stuff, I didn't have the advanced skill set or the variety you needed when everybody came in. So, going back to the YouTube generation, it's a very similar problem. So there's a couple of things going on. One, these kids, remember we were decorating one of our apartments, and we asked about, I think it was tiling, I can't even remember, or plumbing, and the guy replied, "I'll YouTube it to find out how to do it." Now, as we know, these hairdressers these days, my daughter Lily, she's been cutting hair for years. She's only 17, but she probably started cutting hair when she was 13 or 14. She'd never seen me do it because I packed in hairdressing in 2003.
Yeah.
So she'd never seen me cutting hair. So she YouTubes everything, blah, blah, blah. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to motivate them and to make them think, this is brilliant, I'm creative, I'm a superstar. So mentally, they've moved into being a stylist before they're a stylist. And that's the biggest advantage you can have with young kids. Because if they think they're juniors all the time, they'll always be juniors. If they come in thinking, I'm a stylist, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to be brilliant, they're already a stylist before they become a stylist. So the mental barrier is a big thing. Once you've got past the mental barrier. However, the downside to the YouTube generation is this: that when you get the massive variety of people coming into the salon, they want a razor cut, God, they may even want like a roller set. You know, you just don't know what they're going to want. They may not have the skills to do that stuff. So if somebody comes into the salon tomorrow and says, you don't even do this these days, I want a perm. How many of these young kids know how to do a perm properly? A stack perm, a spiral perm, a weave perm, bodybuilding perm. You know, all these different types of perms you used to do. And they're going to say, hang on a second, I need to go in the back and YouTube it.
And they may not find it.
They may not even find it these days, no. So I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a not so good thing, but for me, if you had to say, is it good or bad, I would say it was more good than bad.
Yeah, well, that's really good.
Is it just, let me say that, you know, I'm not really, me personally, I'm in the creative industry, I don't believe in the power of conventional training. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci never trained with anyone. Anyone. And he was amazing. Because he extracted what was in his brain and made it brilliant. So, cutting hair is just a problem.
Yeah.
She has a problem, her hair's the wrong style, you have the solution, can you cut it into something new? But you do need, like, to be fair on the industry, they do need to be trained. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Especially the rules and regulations of where they are now as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I had one question I really want to ask you, because it's something that a few times keeps coming up, and it's about relevance of trends and trying to keep up. And now what I mean by trends is, for example, you know, when we went to the trade shows, we've done trade shows last year, Pro Hair, and there were some amazing, like really cool looking, you know, barbers shops literally, and they all look like, you know, very trendy, you know, tattoos and, you know, really cool hair and outfit, everything. But then you have senior industry representatives who kind of, they're not obviously against certain looks, but what they're saying is that does that necessarily make you a better barber or better salon owner or better kind of, you know, shopkeeper, just having those looks? So we know that, especially it's a very kind of cosmetic industry, it is important to have image. So, but where is the kind of the balance of like looking trendy, but not, but also being kind of very successful in terms of having lots of clients, keeping your shop like busy with people coming in and going, and ultimately running a successful, whether it's barbers or salon, while being trendy.
Yeah, well, I think it depends on a few things really. I mean, it could depend on your client base. I mean, your client base may not be trendy.
Yeah.
You know, or you may have a client base like the barbershop we saw at Pro Hair, which was ultra trendy, Dr. Martin boots up to here, jeans cropped,
yeah,
even her face is tattooed, massive beards. But to be honest, it was cool.
Yeah.
But the only problem with certain fashion is, as we know in the industry, it does have its place and its time, and it comes and it goes. But it's important. There's no point moaning about. I mean, I know what you're talking about. At that show, somebody said to us, "Oh, you know, all these guys with tattoos and beards, and God, you know." But here's a reality: you couldn't get near that stall